The performance testing application provides a set of tools that allow you to model different traffic scenarios and measure performance. You can set up different test cases, run them, and view the results. The application models AXI bridges, so ASNIs and AMNIs, and internal components such as routers, BCDC, and SerDes modules. It doesn't model AHB and APB bridges, as those are for lower performance traffic and are typically not a concern for performance analysis. The application collects various statistics to give performance insight into your design, such as bandwidth and latency seen at the generators connected to ASNI-AXI interfaces, PMUs of ASNIs and AMNIs, or occupancy, link utilization, and so on for other internal units. The application builds up a performance test bench around the model and provides some master and slave agents that can be connected to ASNIs and AMNIs. On the master side, you can apply constant bandwidth or constant rate traffic generators and trace generators to replay AXI trace in a format called M3I. On the slave side, you can apply AMBA target BFMs that implement simple delay queue behavior, where response to read or write transactions can have their latencies configured independently of each other, and AXI ideal memories that implement an ideal memory behavior with adjustable latency and efficiency settings, although note that it is not a detailed model for any sort of actual memory controller. To add performance data to your configuration, select Performance from the top toolbar and then Add Performance Data. In the Associate Performance Data dialog, select the project to which you want to assign the performance data, and in the Meshed Configured IP field, select the NI-700 instance. After adding the performance data, double-click on the instance to display the Overviews tab, which provides read-only information about the configuration reference. This information is a snapshot of the NI-700 configuration taken when the performance data was added. If you have made changes to your NI-700 configuration and the performance data don't match the configuration reference, you cannot run test cases. To resolve this problem, select the Assign the Source Configuration Reference icon to update the configuration reference. Please also note that for any configuration, you need to generate the deliverables first prior to using the performance testing application. When using the performance flow, you will go through the necessary steps using the highlighted tabs. A traffic profile defines a traffic pattern that will be generated by a master agent into an NI-700 ASNI. You can define multiple traffic profiles, each with a whole different attribute set, or can also group them together and assign the group to a particular ASNI. When you run a test case, the master agents will generate traffic according to the associated profile. To add the traffic profile, select the Profiles tab and click the plus icon in the Source Profiles table. This will open up the Performance Data Manager, where you can enter the attributes of the traffic profile, such as name and description, and injection rate, which is a time interval between transactions, similar to bandwidth, but instead of megabits per sec, it is captured in picoseconds. In the advanced options, you can select Use Periodic Mode to allow creating more realistic traffic, for example bursty traffic, instead of normal mode, where the specified info was just constantly looped. You can also select AXI3 transactions only if you want to restrict the profile to use only transaction types that are supported by AXI3. In the Transaction Types page of the wizard, you can configure the AXI transaction types to be generated and their proportion of the total traffic as a percentage. When you run a test case, the specified transaction types will be randomly generated based on the applied percentages. The tool will only allow you to add transaction types that are valid for the applied profile attributes. By default, each type is allocated an equal share, and the assigned percentages are recalculated whenever you add the transaction type. You can also modify the relative percentage of the total traffic used by each transaction type to suit the pattern you require. In the Address Ranges page, you can configure the address ranges to be used by the generated transactions and the pattern, which can be either sequential or random. All configured address ranges must be compatible with the memory map used by the target configuration reference. The available slave address information table shows the address ranges accessible to each ASNI as defined under the memory maps and paths sections of the specification. You can specify address ranges manually or add them automatically from the available slave address information table using the right-click menu from a particular row. If you select any of your specified address ranges, you can also use the information icon to check whether they cover a valid region. A target profile defines the characteristics of slave agents connected to AMNIs. When you run a test case, the slave agents will behave according to the applied target profile. These can either be an AMBA-target BFM, which accumulates requests and generates a response after a delay equal to the corresponding read or write latency, or AXI ideal memory, which behaves like a memory controller with an ideal access time to memory. In that case, only abstracted behaviors limiting the maximum transfer rate are modeled, and many details are not present, for example, memory interface widths, number of channels, or pipelines. If you set up a new target profile using the plus icon, it will be added to the list under the Target Profiles table. Here, you can select any of the existing target profiles and use the appropriate icon to modify, delete, or copy it. You can also specify traffic profile groups that allow modeling complex traffic scenarios by combining multiple traffic profiles. You can assign a traffic profile group with one or more master agents in a test case. When you run a test case, the ASNI will generate traffic simultaneously for every profile in the group. When you specify the new group, use the Manage icon to select the traffic profiles that you want to add to the group. The profiles belonging to the selected group will be listed in the Group Elements table. In the Runtime Options tab, you can add QoS Regulators and deadlock detectors to your test case. A QoS regulator defines how each ASNI in the NI-700 design regulates periods of high network traffic. You can assign a QoS regulator to each test case where traffic through each ASNI will be regulated according to the applied QoS regulator configuration. Two types of regulators can be configured in the performance application. One of them is the bandwidth QoS value, or BQV regulator, which applies soft bandwidth regulation managing network traffic without restricting transaction requests from entering the network. The other one is the traffic specification, or TSPEC regulator, which applies hard bandwidth regulation, blocking new network traffic according to two constraints that are the number of transactions that are waiting for a response and an upper bandwidth limit that is applied to the request channels on the ASNI. If you want to enable BQV regulation, select BQV enabled and set the QBurst, QoS average, overspend, minimum QV, and maximum QV parameters to your required values. If you want to enable TSPEC regulation, select TSPEC enabled and set the QoS burst, QoS average, and p-value parameters to your required values. A deadlock detector contains a deadlock timeout value for each ASNI and AMNI in your NI-700 configuration. When you run a test case, the performance model monitors the channel activity on each ASNI and AMNI for deadlocks. If a transaction entering the interface hasn't received a response before a specified deadlock timeout value expires, then the application will interpret it as a deadlock in the NI-700 and the test case will fail. After adding a new deadlock detector, you can set the number of cycles to an appropriate value for each ASNI or AMNI. A test case associates traffic profiles with ASNIs and target profiles with AMNIs. You can create multiple test cases, each defining different runtime options and using different traffic and target profiles. You can use these test cases to build up a representative test suite for analyzing the performance of your NI-700 design. When specifying a test case, you first need to define a set of properties such as name and description, simulation time and warm-up time, and optionally, you can assign one of the previously defined QoS regulators and deadlock detectors that you want the test to use. On the slave interface mappings page, For each ASNI, you can assign a master agent, or in other words, traffic generator type, and the corresponding traffic profile. Use the synthetic type to assign a single traffic profile and synthetic group type to assign a traffic profile group to a particular ASNI. If you have an existing AXI trace in M3I format that you want to feed to an ASNI, you will need to select the trace traffic type, and then you can browse for the corresponding trace file in the trace path section. In this example, let's just assign the previously created traffic profile to all our ASNIs. On the master interface mappings page, for each AMNI, you can assign a slave agent, or in other words, a target device type, and a corresponding target profile. As we haven't set up any custom target profile previously, let's just go with the default profile for both AMBA target BFMs and AXI ideal memories. When you successfully added a test case, it will appear in the list of existing test cases, and if you select it, you can view or modify the details of the ASNI and AMNI mappings on the right side. Test cases must be run individually, one at a time. Each run generates a set of results which you can view in both tabular and graphic form. Progress and completion status of the test run will be displayed in the console. Results from the last execution of a test case can be viewed as a set of statistics in tabular form. Each statistic is displayed in its own row in the table. The description column explains the corresponding statistics. When a test case is run, the results will be stored in the file shown in the results search path. A subsequent run of the same test case overwrites the contents of that file. You can select to view the results of any of your test cases using the test case name field. You can filter the test results using any combination of the following: component name, component type, statistics category, or via a custom string that filters on the stat name and value columns. The Results Context tab provides a graphical view of test results using the same layout as the Canvas editor where you created the NI-700 architecture. Using the same layout provides a common context and makes it easier to identify components. When results for a test case are shown on the Results Statistics tab, the same results are also shown graphically on the Results Context tab. Using the Results filter window on the right side, you can set the statistics category that you want to view for each component or component pairs, for example, bandwidth or latency. And also for links such as occupancy or utilization.